Tony Doherty here for Pro Talk on Doherty's TV, and we'd like to welcome for the first time on Pro Talk, Josh Lenartowicz.
Thanks, mate.
Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, mate, and you know, we're big supporters of yours, and we've really got behind you in your pro career, and I thought it was a good time to come on and get you on Doherty's TV before you're so famous that you won't talk to us anymore.
That'll never happen. Famous, yeah, but no, I'll always have time.
Josh, you've always been humble, and look, we're both country kids that took on the world, and I think that's a real big thing. That I think people from country Australia, but Australians in general are very easy to talk to and very open and honest and all that, but I think country boys have got that to another level. And you know, I remember you from way back in the early pro shows when you used to come up to the pro competitions, and you'd always make a point of coming up to me, the promoter, after the show and putting your hand out and shaking hands and say thanks for doing this for us. You know, without someone like you, we wouldn't have these opportunities, and that always stuck with me. And I thought, what a fantastic young bloke this guy is. You know, that he takes time out instead of rushing off to meet all the pros like everyone else. He actually makes time. Do you remember those times?
Absolutely. Yeah.
When was the first time you came up to the pro shows?
It was your very first pro show, and I didn't realise until recently we spoke about it. I thought you must have had them for a couple of years, but we had the ability to make the trip from Sale to Melbourne, which was, I think it was 4 hours then. They didn't have all the road adjustments, and we got there, and it was an amazing time. And what had been instilled in me as a kid was just always respect those that, you know, if you're in someone's house, say thank you, and you know, be respectful, and that was the thing. It was really, you set it up, it was in your house basically, and you put it on, and I thought, you know, that's the right thing to do. And it was, you know, not knowing that I'd moved to the city later in life and start working here as a young guy as well, and that was a great time for me. You know, in the pinnacle of bodybuilding, Australian bodybuilding, is Doherty's gym.
Well, let's go back to those early beginnings in Sale. You
Yeah.
said it pretty quick, Sale. It's the name of a little country town in Gippsland here in Australia. A lot of people will be watching this internationally, so we're aware of our broad Australian accents, and also the people don't know about country Australia. So tell us a little bit about Josh growing up. You know, what were your influences? How did you find yourself at the gym and get into bodybuilding?
I was 12 and I loved bodybuilding, and if you could say anyone was an influence in my life, it would be my older brother Adam. You know, the oldest in the family, and he was training, and he was big and strong, and you know, had the attention of, you know, the girls, and he was like an alpha male, and the guys, you know, so he was a good leader in that aspect. And I was too young to start training, but perhaps there was that belief that it would stunt your growth or something. And then at 14 they said I was allowed to train in the gym, and I just loved it because it was like a privilege. I'd been held off for a couple of years from training and I always wanted to do it. I'd sneak push-ups in here and there, but only at the age of 14 I'd ride my bike in the morning at 6 a.m. to the gym. It would open, would train, and then go to school, and then go to work after that. So it was, you know, when you're old enough to work, they said that's when you're old enough to train as well. And in Australia, I think the year was 14 to 9 months, I think was the working age I think you're allowed to at the time. So that's what started for me, and because it was a privilege, it wasn't looked at to as a chore, and it was looked up to as something that you could progress constantly. It wasn't just like a house chore where you do the dishes and the next day you have to do them again. It was something where you could constantly make progressions, and you could see those progressions physically. Never really thought of competing, I just loved the bodybuilding thing. And then at 98, the Mr Olympia was aired. We had a Foxtel at the time. It was like pay TV, and that was on ESPN. It was Mr Olympia and Ronnie Coleman won it, and I was just like, I want to do this. Flex Wheeler's routine, Kevin Lebroni's routine, Sean Ray. It's an awesome Olympia.
Of course, 98 was a great Mr Olympia because it was the first open Mr Olympia, if you like, that for years had been a stronghold on the Mr Olympia. So it was Lee Haney for 8 years, and then Dorain Yates for 6 years. So I think it was 98 was that first time that there was going to be a new Mr Olympia no matter what.
Yeah.
And of course Flex Wheeler was a great favourite.
Yeah.
You know, and him and Kevin and all those guys, Sean Ray, were all the people they were talking about. But then out of nowhere comes Ronnie Coleman. Not out of nowhere, but let's face it, no one was really talking about Ronnie. Having said that, there was this genius promoter in Australia that had him out of guest post the previous year before he was Mr Olympia. That was us here.
Yeah.
That we got on board, and I'll tell you why. It was because of Sonny Schmidt, my dear departed mate, and because we all miss Sonny a lot, but he had some real genius when it came to seeing up-and-coming future stars. I remember years before that he told me about this guy NASA that had been at the New York Night of Champions. He said, this guy's going to be huge, he's going to be a big player in pro bodybuilding. Of course, no one was talking about NASA. He goes, you watch, man, the guy's got everything. He's got calves, he's got arms, he's really going to take to the top. And of course, in '97, NASA was second place to Dorain, and arguably could have won that show. I thought was the one Mr Olympia that they probably got wrong. I think that, NASA really could have won it that year. But of course, Sonny said to us, look, you've got to bring this guy Coleman out. He's amazing. He's going to be the future of bodybuilding. What are you talking about? And we brought Ronnie out previous to him winning Mr Olympia when no one really knew who he was. And of course, he went on to become the greatest bodybuilder of all time. And in '98, his condition was, I don't think it's been matched since then as far as absolute condition on stage when it was something else. So
that's one of the most epic ones I've seen, because, and we had bodybuilding magazines in the country and all that sort of stuff. So we'd see people promoted, and I never saw Ronnie Coleman before. And even on the posters, it was Dorain and Sean Ray and Lebrone and even Mike Matarazzo and guys like that being promoted, but Dorain wasn't promoted on those posters that we used to get in the magazines. And then all of a sudden you see this contest, and man, who's this freak out of nowhere, Ronnie Coleman? And then Flex's routine comes up and it was immaculate, and you thought it's his. And then when Ronnie Coleman stepped out and when he turned around to the back and he does that slow lat spread, it was like, man, that's his. And it was just so motivating and inspiring for someone young like me, and I just loved it and got into it.
Probably took a lot of, in hindsight, a lot of courage from the judges to go with someone that wasn't favourite and to go against the grain. And I think they really got it right that year. And it was history in the making. Went on to win it 8 more times, undisputed. I think when forward wind to 2003, we've never seen anything like that in the sport. This bloody shaved gorilla, really. It was 296 pound without skin in 2003. I think that was a game changer for the sport. In fact, I asked Ronnie in 2005, would anyone in the near future beat that Ronnie Coleman? He said, nope. And I said, what about you? He goes, no, not even me. He said, no one's going to beat that for a long time. So that was I think he was pretty right about that. So they were the early influences. Tell us about that gym in Sale. You're a country kid in I imagine it was a little gym. And, everyone says you need great facilities to build a foundation. You really don't.
Nah, you just need the fundamentals, which is barbells and some dumbbells. The free weights is what does it, I think, more than the machine. Now everything's, the machine-based stuff that makes it a little bit easier. But the compound movements, your deadlifts, your squats, your bent over rows, your benches, your dumbbell presses, all that sort of stuff was a fundamental. And I mean, at the time, I went to a couple of different gyms in the country because it wasn't they weren't very profitable and a bit slow, and no one in the country really had that fitness mentality yet. And even in one gym, I remember there was a goat walking through the gym sometimes, and you'd do a bench press and you look up and there'd be a goat walking. That's country, man. That's like you think you have to walk out and grab it by the horns and pull it out. It was a ram, I think, and pull it out of the gym. And I went on gym to gym, and then.
So it's kind of in farm sheds and that sort of thing.
It was.
So look down at the camera and tell these young kids out there that think they need to be at a Doherty's gym or a Gold's gym or to move to California or give up their job.
No, you just need to find somewhere that has a barbell, some dumbbells, some weight plates, and just research and learn how to do compound heavy stuff, and that's how you grow. That's fundamental. And eat, most important.
Yeah, I think the young kids, don't realise the importance of eating, and when you're a teenager, in your early 20s, your metabolism's really rocking, and you don't realise till you're older how much you could have eaten back then, and you look back, and in fact it was interesting doing Sergio Oliver's interview on our last Pro Talk, and that was the thing he said he would change. He'd go back and he would have eaten a whole lot more, because you just don't realise just how anabolic food is as a young man lifting weights with all that testosterone in your body. That's when you can really grow.
That's when I grew the most. I was training for only from 19. I started focusing on my food, and I just exploded. But like I said earlier, I was riding my bike at 6 a.m. I wasn't eating post workout, or maybe a piece of fruit or something like that. That's not a good post workout meal. And but learning about food and protein, pairing up protein with carbs or protein with fats, and once you understand how food works, you understand how you can make your body grow and adapt it and manipulate it to do whatever you want. Get leaner, get bigger, get stronger.
It's interesting. You wonder whether do we find bodybuilding or does bodybuilding find us? Like you look at some of the team sports and you say, did someone find football or did football select them?
Yeah.
I think bodybuilding selected you, because I remember when you were a young guy coming up at those country shows, and it was this kid, he's really thick, he's got a different look about him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew your brother back then, and I thought, gee, I wish Adam would take it seriously, because
Same.
he could go all the way in the sport. He was this thick country kid that had these giant calves and giant arms, and however, you took it a lot more seriously than he did, and decided that you wanted to make bodybuilding your future. So what have been your biggest highlights to date coming up, you know, obviously standing on stage in your first pro show this year, but leading up to that, what were the highlights that defined you thus far in your career?
Leading into my pro debut, so going for your pro card, that was a huge thing. That was a massive game changer for me. It was make or break. It was either going to be stop focusing so much attention to bodybuilding, or really drive and go for it and go for gold and try and make it to the Olympia. That dream as a kid that I had, that everyone, you can't make it, or focus on other things, or, you know, that's for them, that's not for you, or those are for the Americans, or, you know, they're all the ones that are blessed with it. But then, you know, not listening to the people who are negative and really believing that you can do something and going for it and putting everything into it. That was a game changer. Also, training with Ronnie Coleman, that was one thing, because I was sort of stuck on I was always strong, but I'd been stuck on a certain weight, and then it was like a 60 kilo jump on a squat, and he was behind me, and he's saying not to do it. He's someone I look up to.
So he was out here doing a tour, and obviously you got an opportunity to train with Ronnie.
And he was like, don't do it. You know, I had put 300 kilos on the squat bar. Most I've done was 240, and here's Ronnie Coleman, someone I've looked up to all my life, and he said, don't do it, it's not safe, because there was it filled up the whole bar. There was a bumper plates, and there was no collars, and it was.
He said,
don't do it. So it's someone that I've looked up to is almost not believing in you and your abilities. And I'm a man of God and faith, and it says, you know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or with man some things are possible, with God all things are possible. And there was this series called Believe at the Church, and it was like, even though you're someone I've looked up to a lot, you know, God's got, you know, much more power than you, and he believes that I can do all things. And that was like,
well, Ronnie Coleman was a guy.
He was too, as well. And it wasn't any negative against him. It was just, he was just trying to protect me. He was being safe. But then, when you're stuck in your protection zone and your comfort zone, that's when you don't grow. It's when you get out and have some, you know, courage and confidence to push the boundaries. That's when you can. And that was a game changer from there. It was like, if I can do this.
So you did the 300 kilos. You did the 300 kilo squat.
Yeah.
With Ronnie slapping your
around. Slapping and yeah, buddy, come on. Yeah, it was that motivated me. I knew having him there. Screaming at me, there's enough motivation there.
You know, I study human motivation. There's one big revelation I talked about at the seminar I did at the weekend was, do you do it to prove someone else wrong, or do you do it to prove yourself right?
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Prove myself right, absolutely. Because it's about, it's always about trying to be a better version of yourself. And it's hard sometimes, because you can say, I don't care what other people think, but then that shuts off the ability to connect with people. And we're wired for connection with other humans, so it doesn't make sense to say, I don't care what other people think. So in some ways you can maybe do something to prove to other people, or even for to have other people's belief in you and your abilities, and that you're a strong character and you can achieve things. And that's, I think, attractive to everyone. That's something that's...
Going back to that pro qualifier, because it was a big time in Australian bodybuilding. It was our last, we didn't know at the time, but it was our last FedEx. It was the last Australian pro qualifier as such before it became the Arnold, and there was a lot of hype coming to that show. You know, we had Scott Goebel, who had been in it a couple of times and was multi-title Australian champion, peeled, ripped, hard-working, and then we had Big Josh coming. Everyone saying, will we be able to get hard enough? Will we be able to take out Scott? And to be honest, when you guys walked out, I thought this is going to be really, really close, because when you were relaxed, you couldn't really see what you had. It was only when you hit your shots.
Yeah.
So me as a promoter and MC of the event, I'm thinking, wow, which way is this going to go? But once you hit those shots, your muscles really popped. It was lights out. Were you confident coming into that?
No, I wasn't. Can't say I was confident, no way. That was, you know, confidence is gained by doing, and only by doing that I gained more confidence. And I wasn't at all. And Scott Goebel had this big reputation. He was always hard and he was shredded, and I've got a lot of respect for him. And that was always the battle, you know, is it going to be the condition or the size? And I always believe in my abilities, and I train my ass off, and I don't know anyone that trains harder than me or as strong as me, but then I put that much effort into that and my cardio, and I exhaust myself, so then posing comes around and I'm wrecked, and I'll give it the end of my the end of the day. You
and
know,
nutrition, let's be honest.
The nutrition's
weren't
a
the
big
best
battle
on
for
your
me.
diet.
The nutrition's a big battle for me. It's not. And
I think
coming
especially
over
that
here,
year because you know you weren't training with us, and I'd hear stories about Josh has lost on his diet, or Josh went out and you know blew his diet, so he went out and caned himself in a restaurant, really blew his diet.
You know what it is with that? It was not believing enough in myself and feeling vulnerable that I'm going to be compared to all these other great athletes. I'm not worthy enough. It's all these things like self-doubt. And it was, you know, all those things played on my mind. So what I'd do is I'd sabotage myself and I'd go on binge and eat, and I'd think, well, if I lose, it's not my abilities that lost, it was because I wasn't committed to the diet. Whereas that's like a coward mindset, that's a comfort zone mindset, it's not a courageous mindset.
And getting to know you, this is something we've really been working on.
This is new.
We're going to talk about that through this interview.
This is definitely new.
Going back then, I know you did sabotage yourself a lot, and I'd hear these stories, I'm like, what the hell, this guy's got the ability to be anything, but he hasn't got the right mindset with his nutrition. There's one thing to be able to be the strongest guy and the heaviest guy and, you know, train harder than anyone, but if you don't get your diet right, obviously bodybuilding is all about condition. And when you walked out, I thought, wow, do you have this condition or not? But honestly, when you hit your shots, you popped enough and you had enough separation and condition on the day to win. But could have gone either way. You know, you see these competitions all the time where someone's just so grainy in condition, but then someone else has got more wow factor and more pop and more muscles. So you got through that one, and the next big challenge is your first pro show and your pro debut at an Arnold Classic. It's a pretty big thing. Obviously we selected you as the previous winner, and there was only a couple of Australian guys in the show. I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself coming into that. You had this mantra that we kept reading about online and hearing from you and all of your supporters was Operation First Call Out. Now, I don't think you failed at that. In fact, I think you planted the seed with a lot of the judges, a lot of the fans, a lot of the industry saying, hey, this guy's not here to make up numbers. So I think it was a pretty smart mindset. How much did you believe in that, or how much did you have to believe in that to get through the process?
I did believe in that initially, and it was, like I said, I can't say Operation Last Call Out, you know, you've got to believe in yourself enough to want to do better. Going against the lineup though, it just started sinking in as the prep would go on. Like we were saying, that doubt, that not believing enough in yourself.
And not having announcing bigger and bigger names in the show.
Yeah, you kept doing it. And not having the right team around you. Now, it's so different. Like I feel like I've finally got the food part conquered, and I've never had it like that before. Only when I was living in the country I had it conquered, and now I feel like I've finally got it again. So I'm like really looking forward to the future now, because I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing again, loving what I'm doing, loving the training, loving the cardio and the food, and I know that it's just going to be bigger and better things from now on because I'm more disciplined. And that's a big thing to do with you supporting me, getting behind me, and you know, people I've looked up to, and having a good support team.
Well, obviously we've sponsored you here at Doherty. In fact, you're the first ever paid athlete we've had in history, 30 years of having gyms. You're the only one we've actually given a wage to be an athlete. We're really, really proud of that fact, but it's because we believe in you. But there was something wrong, and that was your mindset towards food. We've just travelled recently, and I've got to know you more and more and more, and I'm like, Josh, you're making this hard on yourself. You're actually complicating a very, very simple thing. You're playing this little reward system game, and you're acting like a little kid. Like you're a professional bodybuilder now, and the reason that people have longevity in this sport is that they master their nutrition. And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but the turning point is you realising that it's actually easier not to cheat. It's actually easier to say, I never put that stuff in my mouth when I'm dieting, period. This is it, I'm a machine, this is the fuel I put into my highly tuned machine, and that's it. So it seems like you've had a real mental shift just the last few weeks with that, to say, well, that's actually easier than it sounds.
Definitely, it's that. It's been a whole combination of things leading up in these last couple of weeks that have just turned my mind around. I watched that the Flex Wheeler video that Gary Phillips did, and in one section of it, you know, Flex was talking about how bad he was with the food, and Dorain spoke that he would never break. That was it. And I was like, well, who would you prefer to be? It's Dorain or Flex? Even though Flex had a great physique, Dorain was the one winning the Olympias, and it's like that. And then, you know, you were getting right in my head, and it's true. It does. It makes it hard on yourself when you give yourself these abilities. But I feel like I was missing out, you know, family occasions, friends occasions. But then, man, this is what I want to do. I want to really see my body progress.
And what you've got to realise is that your real friends and your family, you're letting them down when you cheat on your diet. Anyway, like, you have some of this, but they don't really want you to. They want you to be strong. Go, no, I don't need that. No matter what, I can go to any function in the world and never mess up. You know, Dorain's a great example of someone who everyone said you've got to move to California to be successful in bodybuilding. He goes, no, I don't. Everyone said you've got to do this, you've got to do that. He said, no, I don't. He said, because I can outwork everybody. He goes, I know that no one will ever outwork me. I know that I'll never cheat on my diet. So every time they cheat, I go harder. Every time they miss a workout, I'll train twice. You know, he had these great analogies of how he handled not being an American, not being a favourite. He made it sound really simple. He goes, essentially, they're all weaker than me, and I know that. And he goes, I know that I'll never cheat. And, you know, when we're all standing up there, it'll show. And it did. I mean, his condition was just something that we've never seen since. Never saw up to that point, never seen since. It was like he was carved out of rock.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited about now, because I finally got the food right. So, you know, next year's going to be a really impressive year from a results perspective.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to getting you back on that Arnold stage. So what does the future hold for you? We always talk about dreaming big.
Yep.
What's the big dream?
The big dream is to get to the Olympia and place above the top 6. So an Australian has placed, Sonny Schmidt was 6, Lee Priest was 6. No Australian's placed above that, unless it was a Masters. Sonny won a Masters. But to do that is, you know, making history. I love to place, you know, first, second, or third. That's the ultimate goal, and that's what I'm going to strive for. And it's a big dream, but I know the time and effort, you know, it can happen. Dreams can become reality, and the best way to look at future behaviour is to look at past behaviour. So by committing to the past, being disciplined with certain things, it's enabled you to be successful with it. And I know that that's what I want to do in the future. So going around doing the Arnolds, doing pro shows every year, and more importantly than anything, being able to inspire other people and motivate other people. That's a huge thing for me.
Now, I know you've got a huge following and you train some guys for competition, they look up to you and all that sort of thing. What advice would you give to someone starting out in bodybuilding that's got a dream that maybe has some self-doubts?
Just that, be more courageous. You know, it's confidence is gained by doing, and getting out of your comfort zone is the only way to keep progressing. Is actually to build courage is to get out of your comfort zone. When you're in your comfort zone, nothing happens. You know, it's easy to be at the bottom. You know, it's crowded. No one, you know, lazy people there. It's like you want to be better. You got to put the hard work in, and you got to progress with it. And there's nothing. You know, it's I guess to the youth, it's really about them, because I know when I was a youth, you're new in the world, basically trying to find your way. You don't know, you doubt yourself, you don't know your abilities yet. You have all these people around you speaking negative things or wanting what they want for your life, really out of what they want for their own life, not thinking about your best interests. So just having a strong mind, that's one of the things that I've given to them.
When you look at the current crop of pro bodybuilders, do you have a favourite, or do you have someone that you just can relate to, or you want to, you know, like even me as a bodybuilding fan, I still have my favourites. I still see people come up and think, wow, what a physique.
Yeah.
Who's your favourite of the current crop?
Physique-wise, Phil Heath's physique's unbelievable. That's you know, as far as being like a leader though, it's not. I don't think he's nailed that yet. I hope he can be a better like ambassador for it. You know, Kai's got an amazing character in the sport. Sean Roden, the top 3 guys in the world basically are amazing. Dexter's got that longevity. All these different people have got different parts of them. But if you're going to say one person's physique, I would have said, you know, Sean Roden was a little bit off this year, but he's just conditions unbelievable, and proportions and balance, and it's a good look.
There's a really good crop at the moment, and we can't wait to see you up there with them.
Going
back to young Josh, if you could go back to that country town and grab that 18-year-old kid and give him some advice, what would you tell him?
I'd say be brave and be courageous. You know, don't let self-doubt, because there was even a time where I could have competed in the IFBB as a junior, and that doubt was there. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. And you know, seeing the lineup and my photos, I would have actually won that show as a junior, won the junior division, and that's the issue: not having enough belief. Just getting out there and doing the thing. You know, being, like I said, be more courageous. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is you failed daring greatly. Like, at least you're trying to do the thing. You know, you're not. That's one of the things I'd really wish I could tell myself. Do more things. Do more competitions. Focus more on your food. You know, be more courageous with it.
It's so much a mind game, isn't it? I mean, talking to you makes you really think.
Yeah.
Think about this, and you know, I always say to people, look, it's a big game of genetics. That no one at the top of the sport is really beaten their genetics. You know, you have some people that come in and you say, wow, this guy's had to really, really work hard to be a pro bodybuilder, to be a top pro. You look at guys like perhaps Branch Warren or even Dorain Yates, who weren't, you know, blessed like a flex wheeler, but they still had very great genetics for putting on muscle and getting conditioned and all that sort of thing. You can't get there without it. So you're someone who's obviously, from a very young age, have been told, hey, you've got the actual right DNA to be a fantastic bodybuilder. You've gone to the level where you've got your pro card and you're playing at the top now. So from now, it really does become quite a mind game.
Yeah.
Do you study, you know, like psychology or the attitude of winners? Do you have favourite sayings or mentors of people that perhaps? Because I'd like to talk to you more about the mind games. We're going to talk about chicken and rice and deadlifts all day.
Now I do. It's much more mind related, and you know, speaking with you, you even said like as an amateur, you have the ability to win almost any show, and then you go into being a professional, and you're in this field of just great people and great athletes, and you may not win a show for a while.
We did talk about that, and a lot of people don't realise that because there's nobody think, well, every show in your career you've had the ability to win or you've won.
Yeah.
And then you go to do your first pro show, and you're not going to win it.
Yeah.
Let's just face it. I mean, you've got to aim big and you see how everyone's going in it to win it. But when you've got guys like, you know, Dexter Jackson in the show and these top pros that have been pros for many years that are winning shows, you're probably not going to win your first show. So how much of a mental adjustment is that where all of a sudden you're competing against just you again instead of looking to beat, you know, Scott Goble or Luke Shembry or another top Australian, and you're looking at these guys going, well, that's going to take a couple of years.
Yeah.
How hard's that?
My mind was the critics and what people, you know, you not being able or letting people down. And that was, like I said before, was a quotes or sayings, and it was one that's really hit home. Is from Theodore Roosevelt in the 1900s, and it says, the credit doesn't lie in the critic. The credit doesn't lie in the critic or the one who points out when the strong man falls or how the doer of deeds could have done it better. The credit lies in the man in the arena whose face is marred with blood and sweat and dust, who at best triumphs greatly and at worst fails, but fails daring greatly. And that really hits home because it thinks what you think, well, at least I'm out there doing it, and it's easy for someone to point the finger and say you should have done better, or you let us down because we had hopes in you. You know, at least when you're there doing it, even if you fail, you're daring greatly, you're not going to live with regrets later in life. You know, you only have, everyone's going to die, that's a fact. And it's like, well, do you want to look back on life and say, man, I wish I had just given a bit more time there, I wish I had just chased that dream, I wish I had this opportunity. Now I've got all these opportunities and I'm so close, and I'm starting to believe in my abilities. That's the most important thing. I was thinking, I didn't feel worthy enough in a way. I'd be professional, I'd come to the shows and people come up and talk to me, and I'm like, man, I'm just like you, I was like you last year, I was an amateur last year in a way. But then you have to really have that mindset, and you know, Loretta Watson got it into my head as well, and Craig Harper saying about that, you know, you've got to really have that professional mindset now, that you are separate, you do put the time and effort into, your life's committed to it. And you know, if there's 168 hours in a week, and for 14 hours of that I'm doing cardio, that leaves 154. 14 hours a week I'm training, leaves 140, you know, and then you're eating basically 20 hours of that time, 120 hours left of the week, plus you're working, plus you're sleeping, plus you're cooking and preparing, and that's a really, really demanding lifestyle. So at least have some, you know, courage to stick to the plan and be the best version of you can be, and that's really what I'm focusing a lot more on now.
Sounds like you've really got your head around it and into it, and that's what's going to take you to the next level. Now, Josh, you always looked up to people and sought advice from others. Now you're in a position to give back and to help the younger guys come up in the sport. Tell us a little bit about your contest prep, your one-on-one training, and how people can get in touch with you to share in your knowledge, because you've got a lot to give.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons I want to stay in Australia, is to give back and lift the knowledge of other athletes and just invest in them and give them something to strive for and aim for. And I've got Chad Nicholls as my prep coach that I've got a lot of knowledge from, and I've had a lot of knowledge from people nationwide, and I'll just pass that on to the people I train. And I train out of Doherty's gym, and I do online coaching, and they can get hold of me through Facebook at King of the Gym, or through email josh@bigjosh.com.au, and that's my website too, bigjosh.com.au. But I love training people and love helping people, and what's made me better is not having the pride to think I can do it all myself. What's made me achieve what I've achieved is getting help from other people and learning, and then having a plan to follow from them, and that's what I want to help.
Must have been a big jump to go and enlist Chad Nicholls, because he's Ronnie Coleman's coach. In fact, he was kind of the first guru or the first guy to become really famous training athletes, because he had a pretty good client with Ronnie Coleman. How did it go getting in touch with Chad, and how much difference has that made? Where you're talking to someone who really knows the sport and knows what as Ronnie would say, what the big dogs are doing. So how much of a help and influence has it been stepping outside of that national mindset, if you like, and saying, no, I want to be the best, I'm going to go work with the best?
Yeah, well, that's it's been invaluable for me, because I don't think there's been anyone even to this day greater than Ronnie, and he prepped. Ronnie, so he helped someone become the best bodybuilder of all time, and he had other guys, people like Flex Wheeler and I think Chris Cormier as well, and he helped a lot of great athletes. So yeah, that has been. It took a bit of balls to do it, because going outsourcing, everyone just does things locally, and I thought, what, I want to be. And
obviously you've got to invest money into it. So it's a big risk, and you're like, he'll just be another American that wants to take people's money. But I know Chad, and he's not like that.
Yeah.
And I, in fact, encouraged you when you asked me about it. But I remember in between that pro card qualifier, the pro qualifier, and your first pro show, and I saw you off season, and you're as big as a house, about 140 kilos.
Yeah.
What the hell? And you said, I had no idea how much food I had to eat. Chad changed. I just had no idea that to be this big you had to eat that much food. You're kind of eating full time through that year.
Yeah, and that's what I think people don't understand. It's not, it's the genetics, it's the training, and it's the nutrition. They're the fundamentals. It's not anything else. It's the human potential is huge, but you need to give it the right fuel. You need to give it the right overload. You need to break that mindset of being in your comfort zone and push boundaries you haven't pushed before, in terms of strength and that's one of the big things. That's the hardest thing is wrapping your head around it all.
Well, what's good is I've just got back from the yearly travels. I've been at Mr Olympia, and I ran into Chad, and he asked about you, and he had a real interest in you, and said he's one of the few guys who really believes can make it. He obviously has a lot of people come in touch that perhaps don't have the genetic ability to be a true Olympian. And he thought that you really, really did. We talked about your mindset with your food and how much it's improved, and he's genuinely excited going forward as to what you can achieve. So that's a pretty good accolade from someone like him.
Yeah.
And I think you got a lot of good people in your corner, Josh, and it's only just the beginning.
Yeah. I'm excited, really. Now I'm in the best position, and it's like I said earlier. I'm just really excited now, because I've got these opportunities now to make my dreams a reality that people don't really get the opportunities to do, and it's just it's almost like it's meant to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, as a big lifter, I know we can do this interview without talking about some of your training efforts, because it's really insane watching you train, and you love a challenge. It's not like you think, well, you've got a bit of a Ronnie Coleman streak about you where you go, no, I could have trained harder, I could have lifted more. In fact, it was funny, Ronnie put a post up the other day, and he talked about all his injuries and how he's all fallen to bits, and someone said, would you change anything? He goes, yeah, I could have pushed harder. He goes, I regret the lifts that I didn't make, and I regret that I didn't put more weight on the bar when I truly could have. And you think, wow.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought he would have said the opposite, but he didn't. He goes, no, I think I sold myself short.
Yeah, wow.
Now tell us about your big lifts. Let's go through a couple of them. So you squat, and it's not just about single
I do reps. I do like 8 reps on 300 for squats. That's been my best. 300 kilos. That's 8 reps. What's that in pounds? I'm not sure.
660,
yeah, 700. And then deadlifts of 3 reps as well. 8 reps of 300. I've done a couple doubles at 340. Presses. I can do 200 kilo bench press. Shoulder presses, 70 kilo dumbbells or 80 kilo dumbbells above my head, and dumbbell presses. But that's the thing I think people ask me, how is it that you're so strong, or what is it? And I think it's just a belief in the human potential. I think people sell themselves short, and they are too used to seeing everyone around them lifting a lower weight, and then that's their cap, and they can't go anywhere above that. But being brought up in the country, there's no barrier, there's no cap, so you're just, this must be what people are lifting, just getting stronger and stronger. And you see the magazines, and they've got these big weights, and you think, that's what they're lifting. So not knowing that some of those are just stage shots, or they're just added, visual effects on them, and you just do it. And I think that's one thing. I just think I've always believed that I'm going to train the hardest and no one can outwork me in the gym. And if I'm lifting the heaviest for reps in good form and people aren't doing that, then I'm ahead of the game.
Well, that's one of the things you maintain is really, really good form. I mean, you see some of the pro guys are known for insane weights, but they train insane. When I mean insane, I mean sick in the head. They're throwing the weights around, they're bouncing them, throwing the weights around, bouncing them. There's no form or no full range of motion. But I watch you train every day. Everything's full range of motion. Everything's strict form.
Yep.
So not only are you doing good weights, but you're doing them really sensibly, which you shouldn't get injuries training that way because you warm up properly and you stretch and you do all those kind of.
Definitely, and not only that, it's leading by example. It's not disrespecting the gym. It's putting all the weights away when you're finished and not dropping weights on the floor, doing things the right way. It's all about leading by example, setting a good example to people too.
When you get old and you look back, how would you like to be able to look at your career? What would you like to be able to say, well, I'd
like to look back and to have my kids there and to be someone that says, kids, if you really have a dream and you want to achieve it, look at what I can do, look at what I did. Kids catch more than they're taught. It's easy to tell them something, but when you're leading by example, that's the biggest accomplishment, I think, when you can inspire and have kids look up to you as you're the hero. I think that's one of the biggest things I want, is people just to look up and go, man, he's just a country boy, who had not many opportunities, but when he had the opportunity, he took them and he grabbed them by the horns and just went for it. And that's what I'd be looked at as, just someone who's really just taken it to the limit. And even like that, I'd much prefer, although they're full of injuries, Dorain and Ronnie, I'd much prefer to have that and know that, man, I pushed myself to the limit of breaking, then, I could have done more.
Playing it safe.
Yeah, playing it safe. I don't want to play it safe.
Yeah, no, I'd have to work with that, mate. I've seen you in the gym and you're certainly an animal, but the thing is, you've always been humble, you've always had great manners and been a really good role model. It's probably the two words that get thrown around the most, which is shit really, is potential. It's the most used word in the English language, and role model, because they hold up footballers and, NFL stars, basketball stars, they should be role models, and some of them aren't, they're just shit people. But you really are a good guy, and I think you're a good role model for people coming up in the sport. I think potential with you is not misused. I think you've always had all the potential in the world, and finally all the planets seem to be aligning for you, mate.
Yeah, maximising it now.
I think it's your time.
And living in alignment with my values, and that's one of the reasons why I do bodybuilding is because it's, courage is a high value to me, and by getting out there and being courageous, I'm living in alignment with my values, and that makes me tick and makes me feel fulfilled.
Well, I think we'll come back and do another interview after the Arnold Classic this year, but I honestly can't wait to see you walk out on the Olympia stage. I know you will one day.
Definitely.
I promise you I'll be there for you and be cheering on from the front row, and you've got a whole great network behind you. Everyone at Doherty's gym loves having you in our family. Thanks. And we want to, I guess, be that in your career to help you to get to the next level now, because you're surrounded by the right atmosphere and the right people with the right mindset. And mate, much love and respect to you. We just can't wait to see all this unfold going forward. So
thank you, and I just want to finish as well on that. It's just being humble and a good role model. I'm the person I am because of all the people that have been in my life. My mum and my two brothers, Adam and Matthew, who have helped shape my life, and my wife Elizabeth and her family, her dad Sam Latu, and her brothers John and David, and her sister Christy. So they've all been people that have really encouraged me. My best friend Rob, and I've got two other friends, good friends, Andrew and Matt, and they've all helped shape me to be the good person I am, a good character I feel, and driven, and I'm very thankful for that. And now all the people in my life, like you, it's just, like I said, the sky's the limit now. So I appreciate that, thank you.
That's about it for now. So thanks for coming on Doherty's TV. We're going to watch this with interest. Josh Lenartowicz, and that's it.